Hey, what's going on, guys? So today I've got this modification that I made in yesterday's build, and now I get to do the fun part of this modification, which is something that I'm really excited about. So what I want to do today is I want to bandage this puzzle even further. But it's not an external bandage, it's an internal bandage. With this puzzle, it's not that difficult to solve currently. Yes, you can only turn center slices on this layer. You can't do it on any other axis because these two center pieces are blocking it. But that doesn't make it difficult to solve. In fact, I have solved this. I did it last night, and it wasn't that much of a challenge. So what I want to do is I want to lock this top and bottom face to the core so that they can't turn out of phase with one another, and more importantly, you can't use these faces to kind of cut edges along to different locations so that you can continue with the solve. That was something that I relied heavily on when I was solving this puzzle, and that's something that I want to take away from this puzzle to make it even harder to solve. Now, I know what you're thinking, why don't I just glue the centerpieces to the core directly? Well, the main reason for that is superglue has its limitations. It's not permanent, and it's not particularly that strong when you think about it. All I'd have to do is force a move, and then it would break, and then the layer would turn freely like normal. And I don't want to do that because I don't want to allow cheating with this puzzle. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to glue it to the core, and then I'm going to have to strengthen up that bond with some epoxy sculpt. But I also have to keep it low profile enough that it doesn't impact the turning of the surrounding pieces. Because remember, this is a core modification. This is below the event horizon, which is something that I have said many times, thou shalt not go beyond the event horizon. So, it's going to be a bit of a complicated modification. Not going to be that difficult to get your head around, but I feel like I need to go into a bit of depth because it's something that I haven't done before. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to disassemble everything apart from the top and bottom center, which I'm going to leave in place. Now, I'm not doing any cinematography crap today because it was very, very hot this morning, so I had to wait until the afternoon in order to start filming, and I'm going to lose the light at some point today, and that just means the video starts off looking pretty and then ends up looking horrible, so. Okay, so everything's disassembled and it's looking pretty good. So what I want to do now is I want to align the core up with the pieces, that way I have all of the faces, axes, lined up with where these pieces are going to be fused together, and then I'm going to fuse them directly to the core. Now, like I said before, I'm very tempted to just glue this piece in place, but of course it doesn't work that way. It wouldn't be as strong as you think. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to carve out a small notch in both of these pieces and the core, and then I'm going to press a little bit of epoxy sculpt in there. Alright, now I'm just going backwards a step because I want to prop up these centerpieces, which have springs in them, with some regular pieces. That way I don't end up having the puzzle be too tight. If I was to glue them directly to the core as is, I could potentially make the puzzle unturnable, and I certainly don't want to do that because that would just ruin the mechanism right there. So I'm just going to put some of these edge pieces in place. That way they'll be the correct distance from the core before I glue them. Okay, so now I have it together. I have the pieces here pushed out by a small amount, as you can see there. And now I'm going to drip a small amount of super glue in there, and I'm just going to drizzle a little bit of baking soda to kind of fill in that gap. That way it doesn't compress back down once I take all of these pieces back out. Now I have to be careful about this because once I drip the super glue in there, I have a chance of gluing some of these pieces on the outside in. So I'm just going to take it slow for now, and then once I've taken all these pieces out, I'll continue with the gluing process. And now they are glued in place, and I can remove all of these pieces. And I have to do it carefully because there isn't that much holding these pieces onto the core. Actually, in seeing this now, it's quite strong already. I'm not sure if I'm going to actually need to use any epoxy sculpt in this build. Alright, so I got my nail file out here, and I'm just going to go and clean up all the inside. Okay, so on this side here, I haven't cleaned it up yet, and on this side I have. I'm not noticing any difference in the strength of the bond between the pieces and the core. So I actually think that this one's going to be just as strong once I sand it down to the state that this one's in. So I think this is going to be everything that I need to do. I don't think I need to put any epoxy sculpt in here. It also kind of looks like a TIE fighter, I think. Alrighty, I've cleaned up the center stalks, and I'm pretty happy with the overall strength. I don't think I'm going to have to carve any notches or do any extra strengthening. It's actually very strong as is. I kind of always forget just how strong baking soda and superglue are when they're combined. I think this is going to be just fine for this mod, which is kind of a good thing and a bad thing, because I was kind of expecting this modification to be a little more fun to watch, but instead I get a kind of unappealing video. But of course, this also means that it's very easy for you to go home right now and try and do this. Alrighty, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to assemble this and just see how it turns out. And there you have it, the puzzle is reassembled. And as you can see here, the 4 outer layers turn just fine. In fact, the turning quality is pretty damn decent, I have to say. Although there is one thing that I didn't realize would happen when I made this puzzle. I wanted all 3 of these layers in the center to work just fine. But now, the middlemost layer is also locked. So the top layer, the bottom layer, the bottom layer, and the center layer are completely locked together. You can only cycle the pieces in these 2 layers, which actually adds even more difficulty than I was expecting, because you can still rotate the faces, so you can still cycle all of the pieces. It's not going to change the solve completely, but now you can't do center slices, so you have to put pieces in these layers before you can move them to other faces, which I think is very, very interesting. But anyways, I hope you guys got something out of this video, and I hope you try these kinds of puzzles for yourself. This wasn't a very difficult puzzle, and it also classifies as no epoxy mod, which means that you don't need any epoxy sculpt to make this puzzle. But anyways, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Come on, go in, don't make me force it.